Hello friends, welcome back to a little late night video. This one, not a typical video that I would make because I don't really want to make videos about movies because I just don't want to have to like edit in all the footage, and I'm not a movie review channel, is what I'm saying. But I saw the Odyssey and I have some thoughts on it. First of all, I'll say I liked the film. I have my problems with it, certainly. I don't think it's perfect. By any metric. But it was good. It was enjoyable. You know, I was pleasantly surprised. If you want my full thoughts on the movie, you can check out my Letterboxd. I'll put that in the description. Anyways, having not read the book, I was actually quite surprised by how intriguing the story was. I thought it was way more relevant than I expected it to be, because I really expected it to kind of just be this like typical kind of archetypal heroic quest, but it was very much not that, and that's something I really appreciated. And that kind of goes into what I'm about to talk about, which is I want to talk about the politics of this movie. Obviously, this is a political channel, so that's what I'm doing here, right? I also want to respond to, you know, something that I heard said in a video by FD Signifier, pretty famous leftist YouTuber. I'll play the clip.
This is the most conservative, white supremacist friendly blockbuster movie in forever. Forever. Like, if I was a white supremacist, I would be telling everybody to go watch this. Like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all are complaining. They got a movie with a 95% white cast glorifying Greek culture.
It says something about glorifying Greek culture, white culture, that kind of stuff. Is this movie doing that, right? What's the answer to that question? I think on one hand, yes. On the other hand, no. Because yeah, on one hand, it's definitely reveling in the spectacle of this time and this era, in a way where I can see how you would consider that glorifying. But on the other hand, I feel like there's a lot to grapple with, especially with Odysseus' character and all the actions that he does. I don't think the movie is saying that all of this stuff is cool and awesome, and look how awesome Odysseus is on his cool quest. It's very much the opposite. It's very much framed as sort of the sins of his past and the horrible sort of things that he had to do. It's not just presenting these things as an amazing good thing, you know. It's actively grappling with the morality of what's going on in the film. Although, to the point, I will say, I think I would have recast the movie if I was the one directing it. I was surprised by how not egregious it was with all the star power. I thought it would be really distracting. It wasn't as distracting as I thought it would be. But nonetheless, yeah, if I were to cast the movie, I think it would make more sense to cast relatively unknown people, Greek people. I feel like that would have just made more sense in general. I think that would be much cooler. I just don't like the decision to cast all these celebrities. At the very least, just don't cast a bunch of celebrities. I thought that was dumb. So I get that. I would have recast the film. And I also found the fight scenes to be, especially at the end, to be just a little bit not the vibe. And what I mean by that is that they were doing this sort of choreography that's very reminiscent of like The Dark Knight or like Jason Bourne or something. In this way that's just kind of like, look at these cool people doing all these this cool fighting, and it's like, this is not the vibe at all. Like, it just felt so unserious to me. That's really when the movie is like glorifying. Like, you can't go from saying that all this violence is so horrible. Not horrible, the movie is not necessarily saying that, but you can't go from sort of grappling with the seriousness of the violence and then turning it into a like just an action movie, you know? There's a way to do action in a way that's a little more, I guess, tasteful, is all I'll say. And honestly, also another note on the final fight scene. By the way, I love Robert Pattinson's character. I think he stole the show of this movie. I liked every second of him on screen. And I don't know if this is supposed to be funny or not, but there in the final fight scene, Robert Pattinson's character is like hiding behind this pillar, and every single time the guy on the roof drops weapons through the roof, he's just like, get the swords, and then they'll drop spears, and he goes, get the spears, and then they drop shields, and he's like, shields, guys, get the shields. It was so funny. He just kept saying that. It was hilarious. I genuinely, I don't know if they meant that to be funny, but it was very funny to me. And the way that Robert Pattinson's character was like so cowardly, like yelling at people to go get the weapons. Anyways, I digress. I just really liked that. What I want to get into here, though, is the actual reading of the movie from a political perspective, you know, because you can say all you want about glorifying this, glorifying that, whatever, right? But what can we actually take away from the film in terms of a political or moral message? And to that, I kind of want to turn to our good old pal Friedrich Nietzsche, which I do a lot in these videos for some reason. But yeah, I want to turn to Nietzsche because Nietzsche kind of famously idolized Odysseus. And I think that's very interesting because Nietzsche is certainly someone who rejects traditional moral values, right? Traditional systems of power, right? And I think that I definitely see how that's paralleled in Odysseus. I mean, think about it. The tagline of the film is defy the gods, right? Within the framework of the film or the era that it takes place within, defying the gods means more than defying the gods. It means defying everything, right? Because this whole society is built on the gods. All the traditional moral structures, all the traditional power structures are all built on the gods. And so when we say defy the gods, we are saying a lot more than what that sounds like. I see that within Odysseus's character because he is not very heroic. He uses trickery and deception, and he is often kind of cruel almost. And he certainly defies your traditional moral beliefs of the time, and you see that throughout the entire film in various ways. Just him doing things his way and not the way that it is like supposed to be done, essentially, right? And yes, he gets men killed, you know, but you still sympathize with him and you're with him, and in fact you're rooting for him because he has a I don't want to say righteous, but he has an understandable goal. He has a human goal, right? And that is to return to his wife and his son. And now I'm going to get Nietzsche right now because I want to quote this. I've been rereading some Beyond Good and Evil. There's a Nietzsche aphorism where, and this, if you want to understand Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, if you sort of want to understand what he means by that, I feel like there's honestly no better place to come at it than from this aphorism of his. He says, that which is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil, right? And that's how I feel about Odysseus. He is certainly beyond good and evil, you know? And I think that's because what he's doing is out of love. It is not attached to any of the traditional moral laws. He's not here to gain honor. He is not here to show off his masculinity and say, I'm so cool and awesome. He is here to come back to his wife and his son, right? That is deeply, deeply interesting and compelling to me. And again, I see why Nietzsche idolized him. And I see why the whole story is a rejection of good and evil, you know? And it's saying, look at all of these horrible things that Odysseus did, right? And yet you root for him, and yet he is the good guy. And not in a way of like, you should feel bad about that, but in a way of like, huh, that makes you think. Like, he is the good guy, right? And another thing I liked, and I don't know if this is in the book or not, but it might have just been a movie decision, but I liked that when he actually comes to his goal, he does have to reckon with the past, with his past errors. But it's not in a regretful way, I feel. It's more, of course he's burdened by guilt, but everything that had happened brought him to where he is, right? And I think that's recognized. We can't live so righteously through life. You know, we are human, and Odysseus is a deeply human character, you know, who made mistakes, very horrible mistakes, right? But what matters is that he did things his own way, you know, and that aspect of his character, that he did things his own way, that he defied what was traditionally there. If he had not done that, he would never have returned to his son and his wife. He would have died, right? If he had not used his cleverness and his adaptability to go beyond what was established, right? And so I don't think he's regretful. I think he's looking back, certainly with guilt, but it's almost, it seems like a necessary thing, you know, and I think that this can be read in a lot of different ways. I think it can be read in a very personal way, and I also think it can be read on a more larger level, a sense of like, you know, recognizing the evils that humans have done in general, but, you know, should we be wiped off the face of the earth because we're so evil? I don't think so. You know, it's like, maybe we're getting to a place where we can truly be free, and we can truly be, you know, we can truly be human, right? And it would have cost us a great deal. It will have, whenever that day comes. But, you know, I don't think we'll look back with too much guilt, or with too much regret, right? Because we eventually we pushed through, and we did things our own way, you know. Anyways, just stuff to think about, right? I also think there's kind of a reading of the movie where Odysseus is very much rejecting these sort of hierarchies that exist. And what I mean by that is, again, just the way in which he is not motivated to prove his leadership and be a great leader, you know, and take up command and power. In fact, he very much recognizes the ills of this line of, you know, reasoning and doing things, because he sees literally the consequences of a group of men putting all their faith in one person and taking all their orders from one person. I think he rejects that, right? And he literally does at the end when he decides not to be king and to let his son be king, and he just goes away, you know, with his wife. I think that was cool. I know he was exiled and stuff. I don't really know how that works, but it seemed like a decision he was making. But I don't know. In any case, I think you can still read it in a way where he's acting very much against that force, you know. It is not, what I'm saying is that the film and the story are not glorifying Odysseus as a leader. Very much the opposite. I think him as a leader is where he's doing his most harm, right? Or the things that he feels the most guilty about. But the place where you are the most sympathetic to his character is purely within his motivations, his way of acting, you know, as an individual. So yeah, I've just been left with a lot more to think about than I thought I would. Good movie. I'd love to hear people's thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts on my thoughts, you know. Because, yeah, there's a lot to talk about with this thing. Big film. So, anyways, that'll do it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.